Good morning. I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. Going to spend some time talking to you about you and your business. It's your business to take care of yourself and your family, to be healthy, and we love the work that our good friend, Price of Business contributor Frank Granet does here on our organization with our feature that we do together called The Price of ADHD Business. That content shows up both here on the program, but also at priceofbusiness.com, usdailyreview.com, and CAOOY.org, which stands for Coalition Against Over-Medicating Our Youth, which is an organization that was founded by our contributor, Frank. Frank, is always glad to have you on the program.
Hey, great to be on again, Kevin. And, since we began this campaign, Kevin, many, many months ago, you and I have been on a quest to attract. We're not talking about, we're basically looking at and attracting these prominent healthcare providers and professionals across the country to weigh in on what and how we can help families that are struggling with their children and getting them back on the right track with neurobehavioral conditions such as the ADHD condition, especially in our young child population. And today is no different. Kevin, we have a great guest. His name is Dr. Toby Watson. He comes to us from the great cheese state of Wisconsin. He's the clinical director of Associated Psychological Health Services, and he's a contributor, a public speaker for the International Society for the Psychological Treatment of Schizophrenia. And Dr. Watson, it's great to have you on our program today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I look forward to our discussion.
Kind of give us an overview of your practice. Kind of give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. I was originally started in neuropsychology and then changed track into kind of more of a general psychology. I was trained at a clinic out in Fresno, California, where I worked with people who elected not to take psychotropic medications, even though they had like severe, what we call mental illness. Those are the things that you hear on the radio and television about, schizophrenia or bipolar. And I originally thought that you couldn't work with somebody in psychotherapy, that these were biological diseases that needed to be treated with medication. And by working at this clinic over several years and then afterwards learning a great deal of research and becoming really an expert in the research, I discovered that actually that simply is not true, and that you really can work with these types of people who suffer and actually get full recovery. And so ultimately what I did then, after working in a large treatment adolescent and child facility in the state of Illinois, right outside of Chicago, I came back to my hometown to raise my own little rugrats and took over a clinic that had been around for about 20 years and now have run that clinic for about 10 years at the doctoral training program for students around the country. And then in between there, I took a gig as the chief psychologist for the state of Wisconsin Department of Corrections at KMCI, and did that for about 2 years, helping coordinate and do training all over the state for all the officers, as well as some of the police departments and sheriff's departments in like de-escalation techniques. And I've been lecturing and testifying in court as an expert for almost 10 years now, or no, I should say almost 15 years now. About these types of issues. I've given testimony to the FDA. I've been invited guest speaker to the Congress of Mexico, and just really enjoy educating people about what really is happening in mental health.
Very good. Go ahead.
Dr. Watson, explain to our listeners. Say you have that parent that's struggling with a young child, okay, with ADHD-like symptoms, okay. In your practice, how do you help this family or this child, because we all know we've had many guests in the past come on and we warn about the premature use of ADHD stimulant medications, especially in that young child, because what happens invariably over long term, it can lead into these other types of psychiatric illnesses that you just described. So what do you do? What's that quick 1, 2, 3? I know it's not quick, but explain to our listeners briefly what we can do for that struggling child on the psychological end of your specialty.
Sure. And again, one size is never going to fit all. You're never going to say, well, this is the thing to do for a child. But if you continue to look and you keep looking, you will always find the underlying cause or reason why a child might be struggling. For some child, it might be a skill deficit. Maybe there's some sort of reading disorder, or it could be as simple as, they need glasses. There could be a nutritional deficiency. It could be a structural thing where the child isn't getting to bed early enough. Or it could be a psychosocial thing where maybe he's being teased at school. Maybe there's a spiritual piece missing from the family or from the child that he's starting to question things. There could have been a loss, from a parent or from a grandmother. Could be a teacher that's just not gelling with this child, that's, causing him anxiety. It could be just a super sensitivity in the child where the child starts to feel less than, small, or inferior in some way. It could also be 1,000 other possibilities. But what is key, and I think this is the key, is there are some really great programs out there and really great behavioral therapists and analytical therapists that really can connect with the child and start to figure out what is going on for that child, depending on if you're talking young child all the way up through adolescence. Just a couple I'll throw out there, but like the Nurtured Heart approach by Howard Glasser, it's being used in thousands of schools. It's extremely effective. The Caregiver Skill Program by David Stein, again, well-researched, well-funded, showing that if you take a child, you remove them off these medications, you put this structure in place, the child gets better. I can tell you, though, unequivocally, for 10 years we've been running this clinic, we have never once made a referral where we've had to, say, hey, your child needs to be placed on medications. It is true. Sometimes we've met with the child 2, 3, even 5 days in a week. We've gone to the school sometimes. And sometimes we have to have, family education, go to the school, work with the teachers, and really develop a wrap program. But it works. And you put the time in initially, and it pays off dividends. Dr.
Watson, we only have about 2 minutes left. Give us your website real quickly.
Sure. My website is www.abcmedsfree.com. And if somebody just Googles Dr. Toby Watson, it's almost impossible for you not to find me.
All right, abcmedfree.com. And Frank, I need you to close with your final thought to wrap up the segment.
Yeah, Dr. Watson, thanks for being on our program today. And like I say to all of our listeners, the underlying cause of ADHD-like symptoms is a solvable puzzle. And when we look at the environment, which Dr. Watson is very adept at, we're also looking at physiological risk factors and the nutritional side. When you look at those three risk factors, the solution can be found. And Dr. Watson, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and we'll guide our listeners not only to your website, but caooy.org to get that action plan of what you need to do now to get your child back on track.
I love that. Thanks, gentlemen. Great stuff. And, of course, this will also show up, I'm sure, with an article by Frank with the audio at GuestDailyReview.com and priceofbusiness.com. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, when we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here does show up over there at GuestDailyReview.com. And this is The Price of Business.